Hi, Jordan.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. What about you?
Pretty good.
Morning.
Hey.
Hello, folks.
Hey.
We have the awkwardest setup.
It's got to call in twice.
We had to see who gave in first.
Hello, everybody. We'll get started in a minute or two just to make sure everyone has time to show up, but we got pretty good quorum. Let me count.
So it's a bit misleading. Jeff, Jeff is here, but Steven is not yet here, and Michael will be a bit late, he told me. So
Cool, thanks, Pascal. I was gonna say we've got like a couple more people listed in our attendees file than we actually have on the call just yet, but that will explain it. Um, cool. Well, in that case, let's get things started. Welcome everybody. It is March already. Thank you, Pascal, for the link to the agenda right there. Can't believe it's March already. We've got a very busy agenda full of lots of really interesting things to dig into. But of course, before we do all of that, by joining the call, we of course all agree to our membership agreement, participation and contribution guidelines, code of conduct, all the things that help us make this productive space. If you're ever curious, there's links in the agenda to go read up on those. And then we always do a round of intros for attendees, mostly just as an AV check, but also in case anybody comes and watches these videos later, they'll recognize names to faces. Let's go down the list as it is in the agenda file. And if you are not there yet, no worries, just send a pull request. I'll keep an eye out for those and get them merged. I'm at the top, so hello everybody. My name is Lee.
Hey, I'm Alex. I'm with DoorDash.
Hey, I'm Yovi.
Hey everyone, Benji from GraphQL.
hey, I'm Jordan, and I work on Relay at Meta.
Hey, Rob from First Dibs.
Everyone, Martin from Apollo.
Benoit from Apollo.
Pascal from Chili Cream.
Mike will be coming later, so we'll skip over.
Hi, Jeanette from Meta.
And I'm Matt from Meta.
Steven is not here, right? Just
I don't see him.
okay. Then Koi from Meta.
Do we miss anybody
And
who did?
on my branch, which just has to be merged, I'm Jeff Ariema from Apollo. Good to see everybody.
Hey,
Sorry,
welcome.
I could have swore I opened one, but I didn't. So
No sweat. I'm gonna get attendee PRs merged quickly. Awesome. Welcome everybody. We've got all kinds of interesting things to talk about. I'm just gonna review over them quickly, just in case we missed any that we want to tack on to the end. We're gonna do a quick update on GraphQL Conf. Benji's got some thoughts to share there. We're gonna talk about non-nullable include deprecated arguments, open telemetry spec, tone of voice discussion. That sounds fun. Nullability working group status update. Super excited for that one. Fragment arguments, skip and include on subscription routes, and a discussion about a spec release cut, which is exciting because we've been waiting on that for a long time. And then, of course, defer and stream updates from Rob. Anything anyone wants to talk about that is not on the agenda? Cool. All right, let's jump into it. Benji, I'm going to hand it to you to kick us off on GraphQL Conf.
Excellent. Hello, everyone. GraphQL Conf is coming. It's September. It's going to be in Amsterdam. It's going to be amazing. Help us make it even more amazing. We would like this year to focus even more on community. So we would love to know what would help make GraphQL Conf great for you. We have, or me and Martin have been discussing today the one of the options that we could have for this, which I've linked in the agenda, called GraphQL Conf WG Sessions. And basically, the conference is going to be 3 days. The first day and the last day will be regular conference days with regular talk tracks and everything. The middle day will be effectively the community takeover day, where we get to do lots of community stuff. There'll be workshops, there'll be the open GraphQL Foundation board meeting, there'll be an unconference, and there'll be some working group slots. And it's the working group slots that I'd like to talk to you about. We can have 2 or 3 of them, 90 minutes each. And basically, how would they be most useful to you? What would be most compelling for you? Martin and I have written up a simple proposal. We have only done this today. It's incredibly early first draft, so we can scrap the entire thing and come up with something else. Like, please let us know what you think. But what we're currently proposing is that we do a working group session much like this one, but focused with sort of presentation style for each one to make it more with a larger audience is the idea. So more of a lecture style one with lots of people presenting their various working group points, followed by the 2 other sessions, which would be more of a round table style discussions, where we'll have separate tables, each table having a topic or a working group or a subcommittee that they're focused on. And then for about an hour or so, you can discuss all the topics there in person, face to face, which would be lovely. And then at the end of that, have some kind of 5-minute summary from each table. And we'll do that twice. That's what the current proposal is, but this is, as I say, just off the top of our heads what Martin and I discussed around lunchtime today. So please let us know how this can be helpful to you. What would you like to see? Reach out to me. That's all. Thanks.
I will also add to that. In general, first of all, huge thanks to Benji and everybody else who's already been doing pre-planning for the conference. There's a bit of an open door for others who are excited about doing conference planning to contribute in this way. So if that is something that you are interested in doing, if you want to take more of an active role in putting GraphQL Conf together, please reach out to me or Benji, because we would love your help. We've got a lot of things that would definitely benefit from excited, opinionated people. Okay, next up on our list, Martine, I'm going to hand it to you to talk about non-nullable include deprecated.
Hi, yes, hello everyone. This is a warm-up for the nullability topic later on during this call. You know, I love a good nullability discussion, and I proposed some time ago to change the reason in deprecated to non-nullable. And I completely missed that we have the same issue actually with include deprecated arguments, which are in introspection schema. They are defined as Boolean with a default value of false, because by default we want to be backward compatible. And I don't see a reason why they should be nullable. So I guess the question for this group is, does anyone see a reason for this to be nullable? Or is it some leftover of the old days where we didn't have default values maybe on arguments or something like that? And if there's no reason for it to be nullable, well, I can put that into proper RFC format and let's get that merged in, especially if we are planning to do a release. I think it would fit nicely alongside the other stuff.
I think this makes sense to me. I'm trying to rack my brain to remember if we had some edge case for input values with default values, or input arguments with default values. If we had an edge case for nullability there.
Yeah, this might I don't have this on my mind at the moment, but will the default value apply if I pass in a variable?
Yes, if you pass in a variable, but you don't pass a runtime value to that variable.
But if I pass in null as the variable value, then it will apply the default value. Okay.
If you pass null, it will use null.
So that will be a breaking change in that case. If you have a query with a variable defined, and this is the introspection query. I'm not sure if it's a case that's out there, but it would be breaking.
That's
if
correct.
you
Yep.
applied.
Yep. Yeah, anytime we tighten the type system, it is kind of definitionally breaking. But we have to use reasonable judgment on whether it is in practicality breaking. Like, will someone actually suffer something reasonably breaking from this? My suspicion is unlikely, that because first of all, this is within introspection, which is very unlikely to be like a prod serving query, with the exception of tooling. And I suppose it is plausible that tooling has that specific scenario, Pascal. I don't know. I'm curious. What do you think? Do you think it'd be worth tightening the types here in exchange for the potential breaking of that variable passing case?
I think that most of the tooling uses probably the same set of queries. Like, I'm pretty confident that the wheel wasn't reinvented there, and I
Yeah.
don't see why the tooling shouldn't fetch deprecated fields as well. So
If making this change does not break GraphQL JS, which contains the introspection query that almost everybody is using, then it probably is fine.
Yeah, this is like one of the weird parts of introspection anyhow. Like, in practice, what people end up doing is they have fixed introspection queries. They have the fixed introspection query, which gets everything, which passes true for all of these, and they have the one which gets the usable subset, which just omits this. So I'd be surprised if anybody has got some weird variant that actually has this set up as a variable. It's plausible, but then again,
It'll probably be my problem if somebody does. We're probably the people who do, and whatever. That's doesn't seem like a hard fix.
cool. Let's see. I'll label this one up as draft, so it's gonna skip all the way to RFC2 since it is small and focused and already kind of meets those criteria. But it does mean in order to go beyond Actually, is draft even right? I can't remember if we put GraphQL JS changes in place as well. We would need to get this a GraphQL JS PR in alignment to make sure that we've checked that particular box that Matt just described. But otherwise, no qualms for me. I think this is the right thing to do.
What we can do is put it RFC1, and then I can work on a GraphQL JS PR for next month, and we see next month.
Cool. I'll change that. I think that is more correct. Thank you. Thanks, Martine. Good catch.
Thanks.
Okay. Pascal, you're up next. Open telemetry.
Sorry, I was muted. So this will be a quick one. It's just that I want to show you quickly the state of OpenTelemetry, and I have a request what we should do there. So can you see my screen? I hope you can.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
at the moment, the OpenTelemetry specification for GraphQL defines operation name, type, and document. That's it, as span types. That's what you get when you follow the OpenTelemetry semantic conventions, and that's a bit sad because we actually have much more metadata that we can provide there. Now, there's a lot of stale work in the OpenTelemetry community about this. So this is a document. Essentially, you send the document, which might not be a good idea at all, the operation name and what type the request is. That's all that is in the specification. Now, there's an issue which is open since July 2023 about adding operation IDs. Benji has also commented there. And there's another issue which was opened in July 2023 about making this better. And that is also a pull request which was done by us, which adds a lot more span types and so on, which is also already annotated with a few comments from the OpenTelemetry team. Now, the question is a bit, is this something that we, or I believe personally that it makes sense that a few GraphQL folks help getting this into a better shape so that we have a generic OpenTelemetry specification which works with all tooling. And it's more about if you think this makes sense, even though it's not a foundation project, it's GraphQL, it's the OpenTelemetry repository that it would be in the end up in. And the question is how we would approach this if we want to improve the OpenTelemetry story, and if this is something that we want to do or not. What are your opinions on this matter?
Yeah, what do folks think?
So my proposal would be, I'm not even sure if we need a subcommittee for specifying this. We may not need it. It would maybe just be enough to have a few meetings with the people involved in this pull request. Most interested in this is probably some people from Tyke. I've talked with Buddha at the GraphQL Conf about it, and we said that we will follow up on it, but we never did. So the question here is a bit if we should make this proper and have a subcommittee, which will probably only be a few meetings until we have fleshed it out, or if we should just do it asynchronously in different meetings and then report back about what the state is.
Could that fall under like the over HTTP subcommittee?
It's a little different.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, HTTP is definitely part of it, though. HTTP has its very own specification in the OpenTelemetry part, right? So there's for HTTP, there is it's already specified how HTTP spans work and whatever. But I believe having a generic set of OpenTelemetry specifications for GraphQL will probably be really helpful. Yeah. Okay.
Cool. It seems to me worth doing. I think Pascal, I'll let you take the lead on what you think the right process is, whether you want to gather folks and have a live meeting or whether you want to do it asynchronously. But it does make sense for us to have some reasonable like a unified opinion on like here's how these two tools work together, just to avoid because it does seem like there's a reasonable amount of foot guns that if you just do the naive thing, it'll work 80% of the way until it doesn't work. And being thoughtful about that, considering all of those and making sure these two tools work really well together is probably a great benefit for a reasonable amount of people who will try to get these two tools to work together again in the future. So yeah, I think this is a worthwhile thing for us to pursue.
Okay. Okay. I will sync with Benji asynchronously a bit about how that subcommittee thing would work, and then can help me out there.
Cool. I see in chat, Jeff mentioned that some folks at Apollo will be interested in helping on that too, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, I think probably all of the vendors which work with GraphQL somehow have their opinions on it. So that's great if we get them together at the table, and then we can specify it. I also will try to get some people from OpenTelemetry in, maybe to say that what if it's good or not what we do there. You know.
Great. My recommendation would be to maybe open a canonical issue or discussion on the GraphQL WG repo that you can just use as like a coordination point. And then anybody here who's interested in participating in that, Shopify folks, Apollo folks, etc., just show up and ping there to say that you're interested in, and hopefully Pascal, that gives you everything you need to pull together an initial draft asynchronously or synchronously.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Nice. Okay, we'll keep things moving. Martine, you've got a piece on tone of voice.
Yes, not a technical one. It's just the realization that we are more and more to contribute to the spec. And we had a small discussion with Rob about what tends to use in the spec, and I didn't find a place where this was defined. So I was like, hey, why shouldn't we use that contributing.md to, you know, to remember the decisions and put some guidelines for everyone out there? So no strong feeling there. If everybody agrees, I'm happy to move forward with it. But if it's questionable, I don't know. Like if anyone has a strong objection, I'm happy to let it go as well.
I think
This
it's
is the
really good to
first one.
know.
Sorry, go ahead.
Mate. I was going to say, I think this is a really good one to add to the style guide. It's exactly why the style guide exists. And the main reason that I said to bring it to the working group is because I wanted to know if Lee actually had some underlying style guide that you followed previously, like the Chicago style guide or something that we can then base this on. Because anything that we can say, like broadly, we just copy from this style guide and here are our changes.
Yeah,
that's helpful.
Yeah, that's a good point. I probably have been copying from the NYT or Chicago style guide implicitly, and it's worthwhile for us to just write those down because there's all kinds of subtle things like which spelling dictionary do you pull from and things like that anytime. So far they've just been a matter of taste each time, which is fine, but it's always helpful to have a canonical source of tone. But considering that this is a sort of living style guide that we intend to continuously improve, this seems like just a pure win. So I'm just gonna go ahead and merge this PR, and then yeah, let this be a call for everybody else. If you've got thoughts on things that you've seen that you want to just add as contributions here, just do so. We'll just keep this up to date. And yeah, I'll rack my brain to think if there's like more specific things we want to write out, whether that's grammatical style guide pieces or other tone. But this is a great one. Thanks for adding this.
cool, thanks.
All right. Time to talk about nullability.
Woo!
Next, you're teed up.
Love to see it. Cool. So lots been going on. Benji has graciously put together a couple of documents. The first one I'm linking has, I believe, what, 6 different solutions that are kind of on the table right now. And the spreadsheet is us rating different criteria for how important we think they are to whatever we pick as the ultimate solution. Several months ago, the working group voted to move forward with solution number 4, just so that we could get started on an implementation and some spec edits. I mean, really, Benji did most of the work for the implementation, and then I built on top of that to swap it over from solution 1 to solution 4, and then Yovi has kind of got it into a working state. We've learned a lot during the implementation and spec edits, and it's sort of raised additional questions about how confusing some of these solutions will be to GraphQL's end developers, and how much we want specific features, et cetera, et cetera. Some action items I got to burn through. Uh, we are aiming to try to reach a consensus at the next primary working group meeting. So we're hoping that this sort of gives us enough of a baseline for people to think about and discuss which solutions they like for us to be confident after the next working group meeting on moving forward with one of these. Solution 2 is I think the initial semantic nullability proposal that you did, Lee. I'm hoping we can scrap that one. Do you still back that?
I'm happy to yield it to, especially like this is just such an incredible process that we've put together. I know we mirrored the last one of these that we sort of invented on the fly. It's just super helpful to just list out the however many dimensions that are getting crosswised here.
Yeah.
And it's just giving us a lot more rigor. So if this is proving out that solution 2 is not the one that checks the most boxes, I'm more than happy to yield to a better solution. And of course, like the last time I presented that particular solution, um, the I think I appropriately described the idea that I was trying to get across, which was like aiming for an ideal output syntax.
Mhm.
And then appreciated that the trade-off of that was needing some kind of like use strict or like something there to then allow for that to be minimally breaking, which I appreciate is a tough trade-off to make. So I'm down to explore the other options.
Yeah, for sure. I think solution 4 is more or less an evolution of yours anyway. So if we can eliminate solution 2, it'll help simplify discussions. Cool. I wanna briefly talk about sort of the stuff we've learned as we've done this. I think for solution 4, which is and solution 3. These are ones where we would effectively create a dialect of GraphQL, where there would be sort of a pragma, which we're using a directive for, at the top of documents that says, interpret this document differently during the parse phase. Um, I think for that one, we would want to uh, do a proposal for a parse phase document level directive first, and then follow up with the actual semantic nullability portion of it. A parse phase document level directive would kind of be a new thing, and we don't want to create like a weird one-off just for this feature. Um, uh, Another part of a couple of these proposals is introducing a way to turn off null bubbling, which I think we're on the same page as is just generally useful with or without the rest of the semantic nullability stuff. So we would also be splitting out that into its own proposal, spec edits, and implementation, and merging that first and separately. I also want to talk briefly about how we've been thinking about breaking changes. I think what qualifies as a breaking change has kind of gotten more fuzzy as we've discussed. Um, it's more of a spectrum and less of a hard and fast thing. So for example, on one end of the spectrum, you have sort of behavioral changes to public APIs. You change just the way a public API works, and that may or may not require code changes for anybody that uses that API. Some languages, there's an experimental language called Darklang that does think of those changes as breaking changes. Um, I don't think that's what we really want. And then another kind of breaking change would be, for example, changing from a nullable field to a non-nullable field, which for some clients would not care about that. That would not be a breaking change. It would not require a code update. But if you are using a code generator to generate your types, that would require code updates. So you could think of that as a breaking change. So I think thinking more about what kinds of breaking changes we care about is kind of important here. Or I think one of the proposals on the table is sort of GraphQL 2, which is just a hard, we're breaking everything. So just something to think about as you look over this document. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Benji, did you have anything else you wanted to say here?
No, I think yeah, okay. Yes, is the answer. I think one of the things that we've spent a lot of time thinking about at the Nullability Working Group is what these things mean in terms of core concepts, and then how to expose those through the SDL. What we haven't spent as much time thinking about, I think, is actually what the client side feel of this is. Like, what does it mean for the actual GraphQL documents that we're writing? Will it change how we do that? What does it mean for the existing ones that are deployed in the ecosystem? So this is something, when thinking about these things, that you should try and keep in mind as well. Because of course, GraphQL is a client-focused language, so we should always keep the client in mind.
Yeah. Cool. So I think you know, we're gonna keep discussing this document where if you have feelings about which criteria are important and which are not, please add your rankings, your ratings to the spreadsheet that Benji put together. And I guess, yeah, just be prepared for at the next working group meeting to hopefully decide.
There's of the 6 that are currently open, like, do you have a stack ranking of them? Like, it sounds like 4 is your current personal preferred solution, but I'm curious how they stack from there.
4 is what we voted on, what, 4 or 5 months ago now. I think just based on the discussion in the Discord, I think 1 is probably the favorite right now. Do you agree with that, Benji? Or I guess anybody who's been in the Discord?
It's kind of hard to say at the moment, I would say. Maybe if I just try and give a very quick summary on what I see the trade-offs are. Syntax 1 was the first proposal, essentially, and it basically achieves the goals, but it introduces an asterisk, which is a weird symbol to add, and people didn't like the syntax. Solution 2 we'll skip over because we've ruled that out. Solution 4 replaces it. Solution 3 was effectively the same as solution 1, but it uses a document directive so that we can just use bangs everywhere. And it introduces a double bang to say this should be strictly non-nullable rather than semantically non-nullable. Solution 4 adopts the solution 2 style question mark syntax, which is great because it's a really familiar syntax. Of course, question mark means nullable. Of course, bang means non-nullable. What does unadorned mean? It's a bit more questionable. One of the trade-offs there is, what does this mean for input documents? Are we now going to use question marks and unadorned when you write an executable document that you issue against the schema? Or are you not going to do that? In which case, do you have two different syntaxes that you're using? Solution 5, I believe, is the one that just says, we've got everything we need already. We're going to turn off null bubbling anyway, because that's a plan going forwards. So let's just put bangs everywhere, which I think is actually really compelling. But the main issue with it is that, of course, it changes the error boundaries for existing deployed documents. So if we have existing documents, it doesn't make them invalid. It doesn't make those queries break, and it shouldn't break those applications, but it does mean that they will not be able to handle partial failures in the same way that they used to. The errors will bubble up further. It will be more destructive. So it's a trade-off, but it's
probably breaking in the sense of what, like if you had deployed a client that relied on that behavior, then it could be between your feature working or not working.
Exactly.
Sounds breaking. Yeah.
And then there's solution 6, which is what we actually have today, and we have deployed in a few places, I think, which is the directive approach of add an @semantic non-null on fields, which is a placeholder until we can decide on a syntax. And that one actually checks the most boxes right now. So, I mean, I would say 6 is probably the best one if we don't care about syntax. And then 1 or 3 are good. 4 is really nice syntax for the output document, but then questions raised for the input document. So it's all like, none of them I think are a slam dunk.
So we say that 6 is the same as 1, except for directive instead of asterisk.
Exactly. Yeah.
And 4 is 4 identical to 2 except for the
3.
The restriction on errors that strict nullability option 2, you have to return an error if something is not nullable and you return null. Whereas in option 4, I don't believe we specified that. Would you agree with that?
Sorry, say that last part again.
So with option 2, if a field is not marked as nullable, then if you would return a null, there has to be an error accompanying it. Right?
Are you talking about semantically non-null?
Yeah, for semantically non-null.
That is true, I believe, for both 2 and 4.
Okay,
Yes.
so for 4, we're also retaining that. Okay.
Yep.
And what was the difference between 2 and 4?
Broadly, 2 introduces it as a schema directive, which means it affects everything all at once, which also presumably means it impacts the input documents, the executable documents. It's not 100% clear to me exactly what it means for executable documents. Solution 4 does it instead with a document directive, which means that we retain all of the old meanings in all existing documents, including executable documents, and then you opt into the new syntax via a document directive, and it's local to that document.
Okay.
Cool. All right. I think that wraps that up. Please drop by the nullability working group channel. Say hi, ask questions. And yeah, we're gonna keep chugging along.
Awesome. Incredible progress on this. And this doc in particular is pretty wild. Pretty awesome.
One last thing to say on this is already something you can play with today using option 6, right? That's already out there. Just add a directive to fields. We are also, I think, on the verge of merging or have merged the ability to turn off null bubbling in GraphQL.js. So that part is also something you can experiment with. And I also built a couple of utilities, GraphQL Toe and GraphQL Sock, which you can use to support this semantic nullability with your existing tooling. So with like GraphQL code generator without needing any changes to it, things like that. So this is something you can play with today, even without this new syntax.
Yeah, Martin's null bubbling PR is merged. I just have to release an alpha for his V17, and we should be good to go.
Excellent. Awesome. Okay. Thank you for the
You have a
update.
question?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. We
Yeah,
missed something.
yeah. Just on like a logistical aspect of this, can we push to get 6 into like in the spec as a directive? Are we okay with having 6 live in the spec, like having the directive live in the spec forever, possibly as a deprecated directive when we actually get the syntax correct and figure out the migration strategy or whatever? Because it seems like there is probably value in telling people, hey, this is the default. If you see this directive, this is the behavior, get all your tooling to work, get it all, like it is spec. This behavior is spec.
I don't think we should do that because it is experimental, because it is highly likely to change based on the outcome of this work. And it would be frustrating if we said that this is canonical, this is spec, and then like some number of months later said, actually, no, it is deprecated, and now there's a third way to do it. So I think like it should be there for us to try it and play with it and see if there's like corner cases and interactions with other systems that we hadn't considered. But I don't think that we should codify it yet.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I think there's like enough agreement within the ecosystem, like the Apollo folks have a spec written out for it, which I think we're all referencing, and I haven't seen any issue with like disagreement about that being the source of truth. So I guess the only concern would be if there's like some namespace collision where it starts to fork and different people have different opinions.
Yeah, like having a side-loaded spec is fine. But as long as everyone is sort of aware that this is an ongoing conversation and it is highly likely that that will change.
I guess I want to double check while we're here. Earlier I said that we should would do the thing to the no bubbling switch separately. Do you think that's the right move? And I guess does anybody here have any immediate qualms with that proposal? Like we got to decide how it's going to be done, but otherwise is like just the mechanics of it. Are people basically okay with that?
I think so.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Anything left on nullability? Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Alex and Benji, for driving that in the update. Yovi, over to you for fragment arguments.
Hey, thank you. I've in the past talked about fragment arguments. It's been a while. So the spec PR is kind of finished for a while, and now in GraphQL v17 we have support behind the feature flag. This includes the changes to parsing, to validation. So we have no unused fragment definition variables and some changes to overlapping fields. So we can't have 2 fragment spreads with different arguments, for example. And in execution, the operation variables are global scope, and every fragment has its local scope that can basically ghost over the global scope. So my question was mainly to if this is ready for draft 2, whether we need more review or.
I'd love to hear from Relay folks first to make sure that this met all the criteria we wanted on that side.
Yeah, as far as I've been following, I believe so.
Cool. Yovi, have there been any other kind of like outstanding open questions? Or to the best of your knowledge, does this handle every case that needs to be handled?
As far as I know, and well, for like the fragment collocation case, which is the one that I've mainly been testing and interested in, that always worked perfectly, and I can't see if you're just using fragments like reusable, why that would start failing.
Cool.
I think
Anybody
the main
object to moving it to stage 2? Cool. I'm gonna move it to 2. I think probably then the last pieces are for us to just review over the final spec text and make sure that we are meeting style guide, that we haven't missed any edge cases yet. I know Benji has been pretty close to reviewing it, sort of like mid to tail end of last year. So probably the two of us will dig through and make sure that we haven't missed anything. Otherwise, hopefully it doesn't live at stage 2 very long and can get very quickly to approved.
Yeah, in the spec PR, I changed a few things that would be better served with Benji's execute grouped field set, which you will notice because it's moving more towards the grouped field set execution.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. There's also, I noticed there's a collision or a conflict, merge conflict potential there. That might be worth taking a look at as well, just to make sure nothing is off there. Otherwise, Benji, any thoughts on the sequencing of your grouped one that was just mentioned?
Yeah, let's I've been sort of leaving that on the back burner, to see if any changes were needed for incremental delivery, but every incremental delivery spec that we've built recently has needed that, and it seems it's needed by fragment arguments as well. So I'm going to bump it up the priority list. It's just a refactor of the algorithms we already have. It's just a different way of expressing it. It doesn't really change anything, but it does make writing these things easier. So I will aim by next month to tidy that up and bring it along to the working group again.
Cool.
And it's what GraphQL JS has already been doing for a very long time.
That's awesome. Yeah, getting them into more tight alignment will be awesome. Cool. Well, I see no need to block the fragment args PR on that. We'll just, if we can get the fragment args one reviewed and finalized, then that'll just be a new base that you can include in the refactor work. Nice. Yovi, any other input or particular eyes you want on these changes before we continue?
I think my main concern is that it works with relay. So if y'all bounce into anything, just shoot me a message.
Nice. In particular, I think making sure that folks are playing with the GraphQL v17 experimental flag is pretty important to make sure that there aren't any usage edge cases that were missed in unit tests or anything like that.
Yeah, to be explicit about that, the latest alpha contains all the code you need for both server and client.
Excellent. Can someone on the relay team take point on pulling that alpha build and making sure it works with all the relay tooling?
Yeah, it might be good if we can identify like an actual user who uses these two things together, who can validate it. So maybe we can sync up and see if we can identify such a person, or if anyone knows of such a person or company, let me know.
That sounds right to me. Cool. Thanks, Jordan. Okay, we'll keep going. Benji, next up is you. Skip and include.
Okay. I'm going to do these real quick. So first of all, skip and include. We basically agreed you shouldn't have skip and include on the root level of subscriptions. I think that is on the verge of being merged into GraphQL JS. Like the pull request is up to date as of last week, and I think Yovi's nodding, so I think the GraphQL JS is happy with it. The spec pull request has been open for like 3 years at this point. I think it's also ready to go. I suggest that we advance it to RFC3, and then I can tick it off my to-do list, which would make me very happy. Yeah, so I'm going to skip over that, leave that to someone else to review. And then the other thing is we should definitely cut a spec release. Let's talk about that next month. Okay, should we move on to Rob?
I got one thing to say on the spec release, which is, okay, so part of the reason why it's taking so long, first of all, is like the previous ones were us just like very quickly fixing broken issues in the original draft specs. And so it makes sense that we were moving a bit slower. But I wanted to get at least one of our like big flagship pieces of work in place. Either the real-time delivery or nullability. I think those are sort of our candidates for making the next release very meaningful. Hopefully both of them are very close. It seems like maybe nullability is the smaller of the two changes, so we'll see. But that's been the main thing on my mind that's holding up a next cut.
Makes sense. By the way, I've shared into the chat like a roughly ordered list. This is my pull request adding this to the agenda, but it's roughly ordered list of what I see the key, mostly not editorial changes that we've got in there. And there are quite a few that are quite significant, like deprecation of input values. Like, yeah, it was a small feature, but it's actually quite important. So I think it is honestly worth cutting as is. And it has also been a while. Anyway, won't hold it up any longer.
Okay, maybe we'll do like a timeout kind of thing. Like either we get one of these big ones in place, in which case we roll. Otherwise, we time out and then we ship with what we've got. Either way, I think you're right. We should get one going in the next month or two. All right, thanks. Yeah, let's talk about stream and defer. Rob, over to you.
Yeah, I think this is going to be pretty short, but I have two pull requests for the spec, and the first one I'm going to put in the chat. This is an editorial change in the interest of pulling some changes out of the larger defer stream edits. So it's for the response section. Have been talking this over with Benji. The word response is not like defined very strictly. So this is kind of moving it in the direction that response means object with data errors, that stuff. And the response section didn't actually make any mention of subscriptions, where we in the execution section we refer to it as a response stream. So that adds that into here in section 7. So we're saying that a GraphQL request returns either a response or a response stream. And this is opening the section up to add another thing that will return that I've been calling an incremental stream when you have defer or stream in your request. And it gives a place to define all of those in the section as well. So the changes here are pretty small in section 7. It makes response a definition that we can link to. It makes mention of response stream. And then in the execution section, I changed just some of the formatting so that we're linking to those sections. So hopefully this isn't too controversial. And it's editorial, so I think so. I don't think we need to go through the RFC stages, but let me know what you guys think. All right, already merged. Lee, you are on mute.
Sorry. I was just gonna say that was just like that was just an excellent change. So I just went ahead and merged it. It both used the definition syntax more accurately and also essentially fixed a lingering bug in the spec with regards to how subscriptions work. So
All right, great. Second thing is I have this is actually some defer and stream edits targeting a integration branch where the goal is to just get a little bit reviewed at a time. And so this is only the changes for section 3, which is where we define the directives. So this is just a description of the directives, what arguments they take, description of those arguments, and a little bit about how they work. So would be really great to get some eyes on this. Went over again, going over it with Benji had led to the other change that we just talked about. But the biggest thing that we've been going back and forth on is exactly like the definition of how to describe the different parts of the response. And yeah, so would be great to get everyone's thoughts. And once that we get some approvals on this, then we'll move on to going deeper into the changes in the response section.
nice.
And yeah,
Cool.
that's it for me. So please take a look at this PR and that's it. Yeah.
I will give this one a careful read through. I encourage others to do the same. Thanks for making reviewing of this easier, Rob. I know this is a huge amount of stuff. Doing these in chunks is great. And if you find any other opportunity to lift editorial changes out early, keep doing that. That was pretty cool.
I have one comment on the previous pull request, and that is essentially that I don't think we currently have a name for the result that you get from calling GraphQL. We have a response, but a response is specifically a static result. We also have a response stream for subscriptions. We're going to have an incremental stream, but we don't have a name for the three of those things together that we can use reliably. At the moment, we just say the result of a graph, or what is it? I forget actually. It was on the screen just now, but I've missed it. But yeah,
we're saying like a GraphQL request returns.
Yes, that's what we say. It returns. But it would be great to have an overarching word for that. And also, chapter 7 is titled response, which makes sense to talk about that response object, the data and errors. But we're also kind of using it as the return value from GraphQL. And I don't know whether that warrants a separate term.
Yeah, now I'm thinking maybe we merged the editorial one too fast. Okay, the response is in my mind the name of that combined thing, and so maybe what we actually needed to do was to like the name. We shouldn't name the aggregate thing. We should name the specific, like in the typical case of a operation that doesn't result in a stream, that has like a special kind of response that is a response map, maybe. So you can get a response map or a response stream. And both of those are kinds of responses, and a response is the thing that comes back from an operation, which is now a union of these like a static object type or a stream type.
Yeah, I'm open to it. It might that might be a bigger change because I think we are using response that way quite a bit, like referring to it being the map with data and errors?
It's worth poking at if it ends up being a way more annoying in practice and it doesn't actually end up clarifying, then certainly abandon the idea. But that was my immediate thought, was we should just call response the thing that comes back from a GraphQL operation and then be more specific in the cases of what kind of response.
Do we also need to be careful about the map keyword? I think there was some past discussion about, hey, should we introduce the concept of a map?
We did do that though, right? There's in the
Okay,
in
we
the
already did.
appendix, I think. Let me make sure I'm not thinking I'm crazy here. Yeah, I think did we? Maybe I'm crazy.
There's no map type, and everybody always wants a map type.
Right. I was like, I'm pretty sure we have.
Serialized map ordering. In section 7, seems like we have one.
It's totally possible this is sitting in a PR somewhere. My recollection was that we had added something to the appendix around notation conventions.
Oh.
Because that's where we define things like what's an algorithm and like what do all these weird syntactical things in the document mean? And I think that's where the intent was to describe the like base types and their properties.
I found it. It's in chat. It's pull request 1102. It's one of mine. Define data collections used in the spec.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the one. All right, thanks for pulling that one back up. I'm gonna make sure we should be able to just merge that one.
What do we think about another name for that union of response, response stream, and whatever else is coming? Something like return type, or that might mean renaming the section from response to return type response. So I don't know, something like that. It might be a smaller change than tracking down the places that we use response. GraphQL result that.
I mean, I think our aim should be to have the most clear change, not necessarily the smallest change. And I worry about response and return being kind of synonymous and being potentially confusing. Yeah, we also say result. Okay, this is officially an untapped source of mess in the spec that dates back to the original of places where we say return, result, and response interchangeably, and we need clear definitions for those. So, yeah, worth us zooming way out and looking at what actually the right accurate thing is to do, and we'll follow from there.
I'll take another pass through it, see what, come up with a proposal, and we can talk about it next month.
Sounds good. All right, folks, we'll wrap there. Thanks, Rob, for the deep dive and for pulling out specific pieces. We've got plenty of things to show on from there. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.